Asterisk, I used to think routine was a blessing. A quiet home, a steady job, a loyal wife, and a teenage son who rarely caused trouble. What more could a man ask for? I never suspected routine could also be a mask, a disguise for something so strange, so impossible, it still haunts my sleep. Asterisk, my name is Elias. I've been married to Maria for nearly 2 decades. We met when she was already a single mother to a quiet, doe-eyed boy named Jaden. I raised him as my own. Never once called him a stepson. To me, he was family. My blood or not, he was mine. At least, that's what I told myself. The change began subtly. Maria grew distant, not hostile, just emotionally vacant. Her eyes glazed over during dinner, her responses automatic. I chalked it up to age, stress, hormones maybe. We were both nearing 50. Romance had been replaced by familiarity. That happens in a marriage. But then the nights changed. It was hard to explain at first. I'd wake in the darkness to her arms wrapped around me, tighter than they had in years. Her touch was soft, exploratory even. At first, I welcomed it. I missed this part of us, Mr. Asterisk. But come morning, she would roll out of bed with no recollection of the night. I asked once, half laughing, "What got into you last?" She just blinked at me and said, "I fell asleep on the couch." That's when the confusion started. It wasn't just that she forgot. It was that it didn't feel like her. The scent, for one. Maria always wore rosewater lotion, but these nights carried the faint smell of vanilla and something floral lighter. Sweeter, her hands too, they felt smaller. More delicate, more careful. Asterisk, I started noticing patterns. These nighttime visits never happened when Jaden was home. On the nights he claimed he was staying over at a friend's or at late study sessions, Maria became suddenly attentive. But on weekends, when Jaden was around, she returned to her cold self. Detached. Silent. Asterisk, the thought came to me, once brief, absurd, then quickly buried. A ridiculous idea that I refused to entertain. But once a thought like that cracks open, it spreads. Asterisk, one evening, I came home early from work. Maria wasn't there yet, but Jaden was. He stood in front of the mirror in the hallway, buttoning a white silk robe, Maria's robe. His face flushed when he saw me. "I was just trying it on for a costume," he mumbled, eyes darting. I nodded slowly. "Right, of course." Asterisk, but something had shifted. Something settled in the air between us. He wouldn't look me in the eye. And I couldn't look away. Asterisk, from that night on, I stopped sleeping deeply. I kept the lights low. I listened. I began to notice details that had never meant anything before. Jaden's movements silent, calculated. His voice at night, soft like Maria's, whispering through the halls. And once, when I pretended to sleep, a hand reached for mine under the covers, trembling, unfamiliar. Asterisk, I never said a word. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to confirm it. Because if I did, everything I believed about my family, about myself, would collapse. Asterisk, and yet I waited. Asterisk, I waited because I was desperate for someone to see me, to touch me like I mattered, to make me feel alive again. Asterisk, was it wrong? Was it weakness? I don't know. Maybe both. Asterisk, that night, I left the hallway light on. Just enough to catch a glimpse of the truth if it dared come near. I lay still, my breath slow, eyes barely open. And sure enough, the door creaked open. Footsteps. Soft. Intentional. Asterisk, a figure slipped into the room, clothed in shadow and silence. The bed shifted beside me. A hand brushed my shoulder, hesitated, then rested there, like it belonged. I didn't move. I just let it happen. Asterisk, because deep down, I needed to know if I was losing my mind or if something unthinkable was unfolding. In the place I once called home, Asterisk, and in that moment, I felt everything begin to unravel. The moment Jaden slid into bed beside me, I stopped pretending. Asterisk, I turned my head slowly, barely breathing. The hallway light was faint but enough. His face hovered inches from mine. No wig, no disguise. Just Jaden, eyes wide, terrified, but not surprised. Asterisk for a second. Time stalled. Neither of us spoke. His hand, still resting on my shoulder, trembled. Slightly. Then he whispered, barely audible, "You weren't supposed to look." I sat up. He didn't move. Asterisk, "Get out," I said quietly. Asterisk, he slipped from the bed without a word and disappeared into the hallway. The soft click of his door closing echoed louder than it should have. I sat there in the silence, heart racing, thoughts crashing into each other like waves in a storm. Asterisk, Maria. Did she know? Was she involved? My stomach twisted. No, she couldn't. B. She had no idea what was happening in her own home. But I did. I knew now. I had seen it with my own eyes. The affection I thought I was receiving from my wife had come from my son. Asterisk. Stayed awake until morning. Asterisk, when I walked into the kitchen, Jaden was already there, dressed for school, sitting stiffly at the table. Maria stood by the stove, humming softly as she poured coffee. Everything looked normal, but it wasn't. Asterisk. I watched Jaden avoid my gaze as he buttered his toast. I watched Maria lean down to kiss my cheek, her usual peck, distant and obligatory. I flinched. She noticed. "Are you okay?" she asked. Asterisk, I didn't answer. I just stared at my plate. Asterisk, Jaden cleared his throat. "I've got a group project today. I'll be late." Asterisk, I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam the table and ask him why. Why would he do something so twisted? Why pretend to be the woman who raised him? Why sneak into my bed like some thief of affection? Asterisk, but instead, I said nothing. Not yet. Asterisk, that night, after Maria went to bed, I waited in the living room. The house was quiet. At midnight, I knocked on Jaden's door. He opened it without hesitation, as if he'd been waiting. Asterisk, we need to talk, I said. He stepped aside. His room was neat, too neat for a teenager. The air smelled faintly of lavender. I stood near the window, my arms crossed, not trusting myself to sit. Asterisk, what is this? I asked. What are you doing? Asterisk, Jaden didn't flinch. You were lonely. She stopped loving you. I noticed. Asterisk, that doesn't explain what you did. Asterisk, he lowered his gaze. I didn't plan it. At first, I just wanted to comfort you, I thought. Maybe if I was kind, if I acted like she used to, you'd feel something again. Asterisk, that's not comfort, I said bitterly. That's manipulation. Deception. Asterisk, I wasn't trying to hurt you. His voice cracked. You looked so broken all the time. I just wanted to bring something back into your life. Asterisk, you're my son, Jaden. Asterisk, no, he said, stepping closer. I'm not. You raised me, yes. But you're not my father by blood. You were always something more to me. My breath caught. I didn't know what to do with how I felt, he continued. So I became what you missed. I became her. Because she already left you emotionally. I just filled the space. Asterisk, I shook my head. You didn't fill it. You shattered it. Asterisk, he stepped back then, eyes glistening, and nodded. I know. Asterisk, there was nothing left to say. I left his room, walked down the hall, and sat in the dark alone. Asterisk, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. Asterisk, I had been betrayed in the most intimate, unimaginable way, not just by someone I trusted, but by someone I loved like a son. And in a moment of weakness, I had let the lie happen. I had let myself believe it because I wanted to feel wanted again. In the morning, Jaden was gone. No note. No message. Just silence. I didn't know whether to feel relief or grief. Asterisk. But something inside me had cracked open, and I knew nothing would be the same again. Asterisk. The house felt quieter without Jaden. Not in the usual sense, he was never loud to begin with, but in that particular way where absence becomes an echo. He had left 2 days ago. No goodbye, no explanations to Maria. Just vanished. Asterisk, she didn't ask questions. Perhaps she was too distracted. Or maybe somewhere deep down she sensed that something had unraveled between us that neither of us could name. Asterisk, I told her he needed space. That's all I said. Asterisk, the truth? I didn't know what I was feeling. I wasn't angry anymore, not exactly. Confused, yes. Betrayed, absolutely. But beneath that, something stranger, a dull, painful ache. Like grief. Like I'd lost something that never should have existed in the first place. Asterisk. Then I found the journal. Asterisk, it was tucked behind a stack of books on Jaden's shelf. I didn't mean to go looking, but I needed answers, not excuses, answers. The kind you hope will make something make sense. Asterisk, the first page was dated 8 months ago. The handwriting neat, deliberate. Asterisk, she doesn't love him anymore. He doesn't see it. I do. Asterisk, the entries unfolded like confessions. Jaden had watched Maria slip away emotionally first, then entirely. He wrote about hearing them argue when they thought he was asleep. About nights Elias sat alone in the living room, staring at the television but not really watching. Asterisk, he used to smile more. He used to laugh when I told him dumb jokes. Now he barely notices me, so I started watching him, just watching. Not in a weird way, I just wanted to understand what changed. Asterisk, I read every word. Every line exposed his longing, not just to be loved, but to be seen. To matter. He didn't write like a manipulator. He wrote like someone starved for connection. Then came the entry that stilled me. I wore her robe tonight. Just to feel what he might see. I looked in the mirror and wondered, could I become the warmth he's missing? Could I be the version of her he wishes she still was? Asterisk, page after page, the boundaries blurred. Not between right and wrong, I still knew the difference, but between loneliness and delusion. He'd slipped into a role no one asked of him, yet I, God help me, had allowed it. Not knowingly, not consciously, but I hadn't stopped it. Asterisk, I closed the journal and didn't open it again. A week passed before I saw Jaden again. Asterisk, I was locking the gate late one evening when I heard footsteps. He stood across the street, hair unkempt, backpack slung loosely over one shoulder. He looked thinner, hollow. We didn't speak for a long time. Finally he crossed the street, stopped a few feet from me, and said, I'm not here to stay. Asterisk, I not a dot. Asterisk, I just needed to tell you something before I disappeared from your life completely. I braced myself. I never meant to trick you. I didn't want anything from you, not really. I just thought, if I could bring back something you lost, even for a moment, it would mean I had value. That I could be worth something. Asterisk, his voice cracked, but he didn't cry. Neither did I. Asterisk, you deserved more, he said. More than lies, more than me. Asterisk, I wanted to say something. Maybe that he was wrong, or that I understood, or even that I hated him. But none of it came out. The truth was more complicated than any of those things. Asterisk, you need help, Jaden, I finally said. Not punishment, not shame. Just help. Asterisk, he nodded slowly. I'm trying. Then he turned and walked away. He didn't look back. Asterisk, inside the house, Maria was asleep, as distant as ever. I sat in the dark, journal still on the table, and stared at the space where Jaden had stood. Asterisk, what he'd done was wrong. But it was born from something tragically human, the hunger to be seen, to be loved, to matter. He pretended to be someone else to give me what I lacked, and I let him, because I lacked the courage to admit I was starving too.